What happens when you need to be a better leader? You identify areas where you need to lead, but you feel that you're inadequate. You don't know the steps to take. You really don't know what to do. We are going to attack that today, and I will give you some tips of how to be a better leader. I'm Rickey Jasper, and this is the Chasing a Greater Vision podcast. After getting laid off 2 times in 6 months, I realized I had to be chasing a greater vision in my life. I had to be walking into my calling. I spent time building up a successful fitness apparel business, and then now stepping back in front of camera to talk, to speak more, to hopefully inspire you to chase a greater vision in your life. And my goal with this podcast is for us to do it together. So let's make it happen. Hi, I'm Rickey Jasper, and welcome back to the Chasing a Greater Vision podcast. We have a great one today for you. Today's topic is how to be a better leader. Why this is so important is because we have areas in our life where we need to lead others, we need to lead ourselves, we need to govern ourselves, but sometimes we just don't know how to do it. And leading is such an active thing. It's not passive. It's not something that you can just get away with, and it has more to do with who you are and not your title. Sometimes people are in leadership positions by way of their title, but they're not actually leaders. I feel like we've all had it. If you're in the professional world, or even if you're not, if you're in a blue collar world, white collar world, corporate or otherwise, if you've had somebody who is your boss, who does not have leadership qualities, but they have the title of your manager, of your boss, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a great leader. That can be a cancer to the team, the organization, the company. So there's so many things that I've learned by being a great leader. There's so many things that I've learned by being a bad leader. There's so many things that I've learned by having great leadership around me and bad leadership around me. So we're going to get right into it. Our first segment is our head and heart hits. This is something that hit me in the head, made me think logically, or hit me in the heart, made me feel. And today's quote, you all will be shocked if you've been watching religiously. I actually have an author. Typically, it's unknown. I have an author. So today's quote is, leadership is not about being in charge. Leadership is about taking care of those in your charge. And that's from Simon Sinek. So when I thought about it from a head perspective, leadership is about taking care of those in your charge. From a logic perspective, I was like, wow, like leadership is not just about walking in front of people and having them follow. It's about taking care, right? And I think sometimes, I think of a leader as just somebody who's in the front. Even if they're leading from the front, I don't think of them as always taking care. Where it hit me in the heart is it made me not only think of areas where I can and should be a better leader in, and it also made me really feel and think about where I should be taking care of those in my charge, and if I'm also leading myself, because leadership isn't always just about other people too. It's about leading yourself. Where can I lead myself better? What habits and things can I do that lead myself better because I'm taking care of me in areas? So leadership is about your life and taking care of you. Leadership is about identifying who else is in your charge and taking care of those other people. If you are struggling to be a better leader, and if you realize who is in your charge, there are so many ways that you can be a better leader, and that you really should learn how to be a better leader. In my life, there's areas where I'm leading that I'm still not the best at, and there's areas that I feel like I'm highly proficient at. From a self-leading standpoint, that's an ongoing process. I've had to learn to lead myself as a professional, learn how to navigate, my profession, lead myself in relationship, and really how to be a better man, how to manage my emotions, lead myself from a spiritual standpoint, in the sense of really adding those daily disciplines in to make sure that I have a closer connection with God on a daily basis, lead myself as a family member. And those are areas in my life where I've had to learn how to be a better leader. And, in other people's lives, from a professional standpoint, I've had to really dive in and tap into the needs. And so that really steps into our next segment, our tips and tricks segment. This segment is strategic and simple things that help you grasp a topic and are basically tangible things that allow you to get better and put things on paper and take action. So our first tip and trick for 5 ways to be a better leader is having a carpool mindset. I've thought of this ad nauseum in the past year. And if you've ever watched like a strongman competition, if you haven't, it's all good. But if you have, you'll get this. If not, go to YouTube, Google strongman, car pull, truck pull, whatever it is. They have this person in the front tied up to, chained up basically to a car, a bus, whatever it is. And they're leaning forward, they're facing forward, and they're leaning and they're pulling this truck. Now, after they start to pull, it starts to get momentum, right? But they're pulling from the front. And I always think of that and I'm like, well, couldn't they push a car? Well, potentially they could push a car, but if they're pushing a car, they don't see what's in front. They're just pushing blindly, right? And they're the ones that are dictating the tempo, dictating the pace, dictating the direction, but they're pushing from behind. It doesn't make a lot of sense. If you have a car pull mindset, what you're basically doing is saying, as a leader, I am going to be in the front. I am going to set the pace. I am going to set the tempo. There are people in my charge that not only see me set the pace and set the tempo, they're seeing me willing to do more work than they are even required to put in. And I think that's so important. I had a manager at two companies. I was at one company, unfortunately got laid off due to a downsize. This was like 7-8 years ago. And then went to another company, and he was a very well-known name in the cybersecurity space. And I was like, hey, I think we should pull this guy on. So he, came on and was my manager at that company as well. And he was a car pull manager. By far and away the best manager I've ever had. He always led from the front. He showed by example. To wrap the first point up, have a car pull mindset. Be leading from the front. Do the hard work that you require other people to do, and make sure that they see you doing the hard work and that you're pulling them in a direction where they know when you start to pull, that momentum by them pulling, that will carry and add momentum. And so if you have a whole team moving in one direction and you have momentum and you have direction and you're pulling from the front, there's nothing that can stop you. It is a proven fact. So number 2, in order to be a better leader, you have to identify the unique needs of those who are in your charge. So identify needs. What does your team need? What does your company need? What do you need as a person to lead yourself? I think of sports, right? Sports are so unique because sports teach us a lot about life. If you just look at football, right? So in football, sometimes there's timeouts that are needed. Things aren't going right. You need a timeout. As a leader, whoever your team is, whatever, whoever's in your charge, your family, yourself, sometimes you need a timeout. You don't need to just keep going because the direction that you're going is not yielding anything. So you need a timeout. Sometimes you need to push. Sometimes you are in a state of flow and you're like, I'm feeling good. I can push here. We can go harder here. We have momentum. We have energy. We feel really good. We can push right now. Sometimes you need to recharge, which is like, hey, it's off season. We just kind of need a break because we need to come back with fresh ideas. We need to feel better. We just need a complete break. And sometimes you need to huddle, which means that there's no timeout. There is no real, break. There's no recharge. We are in game mode. The clock is running. But while the clock is running, we need to come together really quick for 30 seconds. And your 30 seconds might be a day. It might be 30 minutes, whatever it is. And we need to figure this thing out as a team before we go out and make our next play. We need to strategize. So you're identifying what your team needs. And that is such a strong thing because what you're doing is you're identifying the tempo and pace that you are still pulling from the front. Tempo and pace are interesting because that's like a life thing where you can't always just go balls to the wall. You can't do it. Sometimes you need to go balls to the wall. You can't always just sit and be in recharge mode and in off season. That doesn't make any sense because you're not moving. You can't stay in a huddle too long because what happens if you stay in a huddle too long in football? You get a penalty because, the clock, the play clock has run out. So you have to understand the time, pace, and tempo of what your team needs. And then that will garner trust from your team because they feel and they'll feel confident in what you're telling them and how you're telling them and the pace in which you're setting. The third thing is to provide mentorship. I love this aspect because as a leader, providing mentorship is so huge. My dad is a great example of my best mentor of life. Main reason is because he never really gave me the answer to things, right? He just gave me options and gave me context and told me stories of his life and how he applied it. And he didn't do things fear-based. So I think, especially nowadays, and especially in this climate, and let me get real for a second as I'm going to stay real, but get deeper. We're now kind of entering a recession where a lot of things can be very fear-based from a corporate standpoint. I've dealt with 4 layoffs in my career. Don't get the intro twisted about 2 layoffs. We did the 2 layoffs because that was the time in which I realized, okay, I need to chase a greater vision. But since then, I've had two other layoffs in my career. I've had 4 layoffs in my career. And the one thing that I've noticed just in general is some of the managers that I've had and some of the people that have been in more senior level positions have governed with a fear-based mindset. And I don't blame them at all because, when economic time hits or when some things that, kind of rock the corporate foundation hit, people go back to a fight or flight, and sometimes that's a fear-based reaction. And that's a normal thing. I think it can always be improved, but I think that's a normal thing. But when you go at a fear-based mindset, you don't have an option to provide mentorship. You lead out of fear. So it's do this task, do this because I'm scared of this. It's not let's do this to get to a place. It's and being proactive, it's being reactive and trying to run from something. And when you govern and when you lead from a fear-based standpoint, people feel that, people get tight. In the sports world, they say behinds get tight. Everybody cringes up. And so they're not able to work freely and perform freely and really give their best self because they're so scared of what consequences are instead of hopeful of what, the end goal can be. My dad would always, he never gave me the answer. He never, governed or parented in a fear base. And I say never gave me the answer. He was just like, hey, here are the options. And I can't tell you what the answer is because 1, I'm not you. 2, he's like, only you know exactly what you really want. And 3, I don't want you to do something that I would do and then turn around years later. And if it doesn't bode well, or if it doesn't, turn out how you want it to, you resent me because you're your own man. And I think when you provide mentorship, you govern people in a way and you lead people in a way that gives them the autonomy to make decisions that are in their best interest with wisdom and knowledge. Follow me with that. In the best interest of themselves, that a decision that they've made. So they have the autonomy of decision, which is power in that, with wisdom that you've given because you have gone through it, you have experience, you are leading from the front. You pack that together and you package that up for a person and they feel empowered because 1, they feel, oh, I'm empowered, I can make my decision. And 2, if and when I fail at times, I can come back to you and get more wisdom and you're not going to judge me because you've already told me of my failure, of your failures. And I think that's so powerful. The 4th thing is encourage creativity and uniqueness. This is another dad example. So my dad he retired from the CIA. I can say that. I brag on him. You've probably seen it in other podcasts. Retired the highest ranking Black in the CIA. Now, I say that because every time we were in those spaces or, we went to different events and so on and so forth, everybody would ask my brother and I, hey, are you guys going to be in the CIA too? Are you guys going to do this? Are you guys going to do that? And it was very siloed into this thing. And I always thought it was funny because I was like, when I was younger, I was like, yeah, that's great. But then you get older and you're like, well, these are some other things that I want to do. And I remember I asked my dad, I was like, well, why do you never, push us to do the exact thing that you do? He goes, well, because you're your own person. You might not have dreamed to do that. So, and you have different skill sets that I really think that you should go out and invest the time, money, and attention in to grow and just go do that. And I was like, man, that's a really cool thing. Encouraging uniqueness, even though he was beyond proficient in what he did, beyond respected and well-known in everything of what he did. And everyone knows him for that, right? But for him to look at us and say, go make your own path and we'll support it. When you encourage uniqueness as a leader, you give other people the ability to shine in an area that they can. And also, when you think of a team is made up and created of so many different unique skill sets. If you want everybody to be the same, that doesn't help your team. You need to know and understand what everybody's unique skill set is so you can utilize it for the common goal. The one thing that's really cool now is My dad is also, a preacher and all of this cool things, but he's watching this podcast and he's like, dang, like by you doing that, I really need to get on board with that, because he's written a book, but he's like, okay, but I'm kind of slacking on marketing it because I'm not using an outlet, but you're using an outlet. So by me using my gift, he's like, oh, it's inspired him to get back into this stuff or get into this stuff and move the dial forward on him. A rising tide lifts all boats. It makes the collective rise. And so if you encourage uniqueness, that is going to happen. It's a byproduct. The last thing is be passionate and energetic with what you are doing. I can't stress that enough. Any leader, any manager that I've had that's been lackluster, that's like came to work like, okay, today we're going to do this. You think I'm sitting there trying to run through a brick wall for them? You think I'm really excited about that? I have a team that I work with now in the tech space that I love working with. And when I tell you, like, they are the most incredible and smart team I've ever worked with. And everybody's willing to run through a wall for each other. And everybody's so excited for what we're building, what we've been building for about a year and a half, kind of in the dark, right? Like, everybody's so excited. And the energy is contagious, because when we come to work, we'll work overtime, because it's like, it's the energy that's there. And, you have to have energy, because energy flows. It's energy, and then you put it through, and I may be butchering this, but like, you put energy or whatever through a conduit and it's going to flow. I don't suggest putting a fork in a socket, but if there's energy in the socket or whatever, you put a fork in the socket, that's going to flow through the fork. It's going to flow into your body, right? It's going to spark. That's how energy is. So if you are the lead, make sure you're going through each day and you're showing up, you're being on. I can't get on this podcast and just say, okay, guys, today we're going to talk about blah, blah, blah. It's not going to happen. So I have to come at it with energy. I can't just have a day. Even if I feel tired, I can't show that I'm feeling tired. Why? Because someone might need this energy. So as a leader, make sure you're stepping up. You are bringing energy. You are bringing passion. You are bringing that motivation, that inspiration, that connective tissue, because of your energy that bodes well for commitment with your team, to your team. I'm telling you, if you bring it all together, have a carpool mindset, you are leading from the front and you are taking care of your charge. Number 2, you are identifying the unique needs of your team and what you need at a specific time. 3, you're providing mentorship. You're not leading out of fear. You are really allowing others to make mistakes and giving them options. 4, you're encouraging creativity. You're making sure that other people's gifts, talents, and abilities shine. And 5, you are passionate and energetic with what you do that gives people on your team the allowance to do the same. You will be a better leader. These are tangible, simple, and strategic things to do on a daily basis to govern yourself by and to govern others by, to be a better leader. And I promise you, it'll work. So for today's word of the day, we have forward. Why forward? For 2 reasons, kind of a double entendre. 1, you want to move forward. As a leader, you want to move yourself forward. You want to move your team forward. The other thing is, you want to be in the front and you want to be facing forward. Those things are going to be the make or break that push you in a direction that you want to go and push your team in a direction. Face forward, look at where you're going, and then move forward. Actually move, which is taking action, which is pulling, which is gaining momentum. You do that, your everything will change. I talk about silos of life, right? Personal, yourself individually, relational, fitness, spiritual, business or work, those things, silos of life. Everybody's might be different. But if you are moving forward in every silo of life, when you step into it, you will see how much your life changes, and you'll see how exciting it gets, and you'll see how fulfilled other people get, and you'll deepen relationships. So we're going to move forward today and every day. I hope that you all enjoyed this episode. I sure loved talking about everything that I talked about, being a better leader. We're going to continue to work hard. We're going to continue to do this together. We are going to continue to chase our greater vision together. Whatever your vision is, do not be scared to chase it, and I will see you next time. Thank you all so much for watching the Chasing a Greater Vision podcast. If you like this podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, send it to friends, use a carrier pigeon, do whatever you have to do. We hope that this inspires you to chase your greater vision in your life and for us to continually and consistently do it together.